The head of the Russian Wagner Group mercenary forces, Yevgeny Prigozhin, explained that the condition of his troops in the vicinity of the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut is currently under pressure. In a nearly 4-minute video post published on the Wagner Orchestra Telegram channel, boss Prigozhin said the Russian front line in Bakhmut could collapse. This threat was made because the Kremlin had not sent the promised supply of weapons and ammunition since last February. If Wagner withdrew from Bakhmut now, the entire front would collapse. The situation is very similar to hell. It will not be sweet for all the military formations that protect Russia's interests, Prigozhin explained on Saturday, the 3rd of April 2023. The stagnant supply of weapons is not the first time that Wagner's troops have experienced. The mercenary chief regularly criticizes the head of defense and top Russian generals for last month the Russian government withholding ammunition supplies. Prigozhin accused Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu of treason to destroy the Wagner Group by preventing the mercenaries from obtaining ammunition and weapons supplies while on the battlefield. For now, we are trying to find out the reasons whether this is just plain bureaucracy or treason, said Prigozhin. Before the fate of Wagner's troops was hanging in the balance, Bakhmut was once home to 70,000 troops, making this city the largest population occupied by Russian troops in Ukraine. However, after the Kremlin delayed the weapons delivery package, Wagner slowly suffered a setback amidst the heating up of Ukrainian cannon and missile attacks, leaving only about 10,000 troops still on the front line. The situation in Bakhmut can be described as critical. Russian losses are up to 500 killed and wounded every day, Ukrainian Defense Minister Alexei Reznikov told German newspaper Bild am Sonntag. Russian troops refuse attack orders after the Russian government withheld weapons supplies to the Bakhmut region. Troops from Russia's 155th Brigade reportedly began to refuse Kremlin orders to advance to attack near Vuhledar, southwest of the city of Donetsk. It was not explained why the troops refused to comply with orders. But according to Kyiv, the refusal was made because they had suffered heavy losses recently. The brigade leaders and senior officers refused to go ahead with the new senseless attacks requested by their commanders to overrun well-defended Ukrainian positions with little protection or preparation, the Ukrainian military said in a statement. The setback of Russian troops in Ukraine has led to the emergence of negative issues in public circles related to the decline in troop escalation, thus triggering doubts in the Russian public about the ability of troop commanders on the battlefield. Even though he was being hit by various negative issues, this did not stop Russian Defense Minister Shoigu from giving up his intention to make a rare visit to his troops in Ukraine. In a meeting with commanders in the Donetsk region, Shoigu promised to pay special attention to the condition of the Moscow troops, including the safe accommodation of personnel in field conditions, the organization of comprehensive support for troops, and the work of medical and logistics units. Quoting from SCMP, this effort was made to clear the good name of the Russian government, which was recently accused of treason against its troops on the battlefield. German Chancellor China ultimatum. Don't get involved in the Ukraine conflict. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said that China would face sanctions if it meddled in the Ukraine conflict and offered Russia military assistance. I think it will have consequences, but we are now at a stage where we have to make it clear that this should not be happening, Scholz said, during his brief visit to Washington, United States, U.S. He made this statement when asked whether Germany would impose sanctions on its largest trading partner, China. Quoted from the Russia Today page, Monday, the 3rd of June 2023, China has faced a wave of accusations from Western officials in recent weeks. The country is said to be potentially open to supplying military aid to Russia, but this accusation is of course rejected by China. China will remain committed to an independent foreign policy of peace, Chinese Premier Li Keqiang said on Sunday. But he did not mention the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. After returning to Germany, Scholz declined to answer direct questions about whether U.S. President Joe Biden presented him with concrete evidence to support claims that China was considering arms shipments to Russia. We all agree that there should be no arms shipments, and the Chinese government has stated that they will not provide any. That is what we demand, and we are witnessing it, stressed Scholz, after his meeting with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen on Sunday. Von der Leyen also admitted that Western countries currently have no evidence regarding this plan. We have no evidence for this so far, said von der Leyen. He warned that Western countries would remain cautious and watch China's compliance. But he was reluctant to say whether the European Union (EU) would sanction China and dismissed it as a hypothetical question that can only be answered if it becomes a reality and a fact. Please note, China has repeatedly denied the accusations. Last week, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Mao Ning said the U.S. was peddling false information about weapons and sanctioned Chinese companies without reason, describing this as hypocritical and a blatant act of intimidation. The U.S. has stoked the fire in Ukraine by pouring weapons on one side of the conflict, thus prolonging the fight and making peace difficult to grasp, Mao said. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz warns of consequences if China supplies arms to Russia. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said there would be consequences if China sent weapons to Russia for a war in Ukraine, but he was optimistic that Beijing would refrain from doing so. I think it will have consequences, but we are now at a stage where we are making clear that this cannot happen, said Scholz. I am quite optimistic that China will not be supplying weapons to Russia, but we have to look at that and we have to be very careful, he continued. Scholz's statement came in an interview with CNN that aired on Sunday, the 3rd of May 2023, 2 days after he met U.S. President Joe Biden in Washington. In the interview, Scholz did not elaborate on what consequences there could be if Beijing supplied Moscow with weapons. On the other hand, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that her party was still observing the situation and had not imposed any sanctions on Beijing. The European Union will take action and will impose sanctions on China if it is proven that they are sending weapons to Russia, said von der Leyen. Donald Trump claims if he becomes current U.S. president, there will be no dead in Ukraine. The 45th President of the United States, U.S., Donald Trump said ending conflicts, including the one in Ukraine, would be a top priority if he was elected U.S. president. I am the only president in decades who has not fought a war, Trump said at the Conservative Political Action Conference, CPAC, at Gaylord National Resort in Maryland, U.S. last Saturday. Quoted from the Sputnik News page, Monday, the 3rd of June 2023, he reiterated that the Ukrainian conflict would not occur if he became president and if he was re-elected as president in 2024. I'm going to solve the problem and I'm going to solve it quickly. It won't take me more than a day, Trump said. Trump also blamed the current U.S. administration for exacerbating the conflict in Ukraine. Ukraine will thrive. There will be no dead people, no destroyed cities that can never be rebuilt. The U.S. is going through its most dangerous times, and when U.S. President Joe Biden leads, we are forgotten, Trump said. Trump also recalled the moment he warned Russian President Vladimir Putin about the consequences of launching a special military operation in Ukraine. I got on really well with Vladimir Putin. I said, Vladimir, don't do that. You know you and I are friends. You know Russia is going to be really hit, Trump said.